Joining me now is Gay-Dagnogo, a member of the Detroit Public School Board. Thank you for being here. So let's start with what's happening with your district. The superintendent just announced today that Detroit schools are pushing back the return to class even further, staying virtual until the end of next week. Why is that happening?
Thank you, Kate, for having me on. I think that Superintendent Vidi's decision to do that, after talking certainly with all of our school board members, that's the safest thing to do in the city of Detroit, where infection rate is over 7 days is exceeding the 40% range. And we are aggressively testing and providing free testing for all of our staff. We see those numbers over the holiday has continued to impact our community. A number of people have had the Omnicron virus. I just recovered myself right before and during Christmas. So we know that it's highly contagious, and we just want to flatten the curve. And I think that is certainly the best way to go to keep everyone safe.
Is the concern in Detroit schools the high positivity rate, is it the risk of transmission among the classrooms, like in school, or is the concern that you won't have enough teachers or staff to lead classes?
So I think there's a combination of issues. I am so proud of all of our DFT members. I am a former Detroit Public School teacher, and the lion's share of our teachers and our staff, in excess of 80%, have actually been vaccinated. But we have a number of educators, principals, school staff as a whole that have pre-existing conditions and issues that may prevent them from actually moving forward with the vaccination. But we had a number of people who have been sick, even with the vaccination. And so with that being the case, yes, all of our schools across the nation are making sure that we're mindful of staffing challenges while we navigate our way through this Omicron virus and the COVID as a whole, I should say.
Absolutely. Look, these are decisions that every school district and city are facing now. And take the nation's largest public school district in New York City, similar positivity rate in New York City amongst the schools as Detroit. Yet the mayor in New York is adamant that he wants to keep schools open for in-person. Let me play for you why he says that is.
The safest place for children right now is in a school building. That's the safest place for them. If they're not in school, it does not mean they're not going outdoors. It does not mean they're not going to deal with the trauma of not having socialization, not getting a meal, not being able to get remote learning. It's a luxury to say stay at home when you have all the tools that you needed. But for poor Black, brown children that you don't have access to some of the basic things, school is the best place for you.
He is saying being out of school is less safe for the students than no matter what you could be facing with the virus in school. What do you say to that?
So I have to push back just a little bit. No one would argue that our schools are not a safe haven for our children. Many of them, especially in communities of poverty, rely on the meals that are provided, breakfast, lunch, and snacks. So we know that that is an issue. We know that, unfortunately, many of our youth are in homes that are often not safe. But at the same token, we have to consider those who are at home, who are caring for their grandchildren, our seniors. We have a high population of seniors who are taking care of their second and third generation of children. And if their children are exposed to COVID and they're bringing that back home, think about the rippling effect that would have on their health, on their life. I mean, I lost my sister to COVID-19, April 14, 2020. So I know what that feels like. And I know what it feels like for a number of all the friends and legislators that I lost to COVID. So we have to be mindful of safety. And these decisions are not easy. And so they can't be made in a vacuum. I'm thankful that our school district, our health department, our labor, and our mayor are working together to make sure that these things are discussed. But the ultimate decision lies with our superintendent and our school board members. And I know that we did the right thing to do. We did the right thing.
I think the point that Eric Adams is making, that a lot of parents feel, is if you have mitigation efforts, the other mitigation efforts in place, like a vaccine mandate, which I believe is going into place in Detroit schools maybe next month for staffers, obviously not for students. If you have these mitigation measures in place, like masking and ventilation and if you do all of these things, it is safe to keep them there. It can protect them from getting the virus and taking it back home. I think what Eric Adams is saying is the risk of keeping them out at this point now outweighs the risk of them sitting in classes. Do you not see that?
No, I do not. The loss of one life is worth taking the necessary steps to make sure that everyone is safe. Right now, we have mandatory testing for our teachers and all of our staff, and we're doing that on a continual basis, even right now while we're virtual. Unfortunately, there is not mandatory testing for our students, and so that's something that I'd like to see. That's something that our superintendent has discussed and something that I will support. So until we're able to move our students to a place where there's mandatory testing, until we can remove all the fears that exist in our community and talk about even vaccination for our young people. That's something that we still have to address, but we have to work together and not make hit-driven decisions about what is safe for someone else. Too many of our community members' lives have been lost. And in the city of Detroit, we're the highest in the state. And so we know what that feels like. Our children know what that feels like. And we have to navigate this together, not one person making a decision.
Thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll check back in. The return to school in person is supposed to be right after January 14th. We'll check back in on how things are going.